Incredible call revealed. Unlikely brotherly bond transforms into a life-changing justice fight. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow, the smell of motor oil mingling with the damp Michigan air. In the fading light, he leaned over the rusted hood of an old sedan, the neighbor's kids laughing in the distance, their carefree joy a stark contrast to the weight on his shoulders. At 32, life had thrown him too many curveballs. A mechanic in a neighborhood where dreams were as rusted as the cars he repaired, he was determined to keep his family afloat. He somehow balanced fixing broken motors while nurturing the dreams of his wife and 2 kids. The tension of his situation always felt like a tightrope, but he'd learned to walk it with grace. But that evening, as the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus's life jolted violently into a new direction. His phone buzzed, an anonymous call, the voice on the other end shaky but urgent. "Mr. Thompson, he's stealing the community development funds. He's pocketing it all. You have to do something." The urgency in the voice propelled Marcus into a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayal surged through him like a hot spark, igniting a sense of responsibility. His community deserved better, and he felt the fierce stirring of justice clawing at his heart. Before he could fully process what this meant, his mind snapped to a familiar yet estranged face. Danny. His brother, the artist who had once captivated him with vibrant sketches, now a figure tainted in the stigma of prison time. They hadn't spoken in years, but now he felt an unshakable urge to reach out. Perhaps, just maybe, together they could right this massive wrong. When he finally knocked on Danny's door, the air was thick with tension. The past flooded back, the unspoken words, the painful silences. Danny, with his wild hair and wary eyes, hesitated. But the moment they made eye contact, something shifted. "Marcus?" The surprise mingled with fear and hope. Their hug was clumsy, unsure, yet heavy with years of desire to be brothers again. As they found their footing, Marcus shared the call's shocking news. Danny's eyes lit up. "We could do something about this. If we use my art to expose the corruption, we can raise awareness." The notion of an art show felt powerful, but fears flickered subtly around Marcus. Could he really trust Danny again? Did he even want to get involved in something so risky? Yet beneath those fears, a spark of hope ignited. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With their plan rolling, they raced against the clock, rallying their neighbors. The community was like a powder keg, ready to explode with the truth. Each canvas they painted became a voice echoing the pain and struggle of families like their own. Tension tightened as they encountered resistance. Threats lingered ominously. With each brush stroke, their relationship was forged anew, yet cracks appeared as they grappled with their differences. As days dwindled down to the fateful night of the show, uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Could their shared vision stand the test against the oppressive weight of corruption? Would their brotherly bond, crafted together anew, be able to withstand whatever darkness Mr. Thompson would throw their way? The questions loomed like shadows, urging them to fight for justice and each other. The day of the art show arrived, and with it, a wave of tension that crashed over Marcus and Danny. The dim lights in the community center flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, reminiscent of their troubled past. People began to gather, filling the space with chatter and uneasy laughter. Many wore faces of curiosity, but Marcus could sense the underlying apprehension. Would they be supportive, or would fear of retribution silence them? Danny stood at the entrance, his hands shaking slightly. He had painted fervently over the last weeks, channeling his rage and hope into vibrant murals that captured the essence of their crumbling community. Each piece told a story: the loss of homes, the sting of betrayal, and the burning need for change. Yet despite the colors, the doubt nagged at Marcus. It whispered questions that chilled him. What if nobody cared? What if Mr. Thompson retaliated? As guests milled about, the first wave of attendees began to gather around Danny's most powerful piece, a large mural depicting a figure, half-shadowed, reaching out as if begging for help. The emotions it conjured were palpable, drawing people in like moths to a flame. Blinking back tears, Marcus felt a swell of pride. This was the brother he remembered, the creative soul who could weave magic from suffering. "Do you want to say something?" Danny asked quietly, glancing at Marcus with uncertainty swirling in his eyes. "What? Me?" Marcus shook his head, the idea filling him with dread. "You're the artist. This is your moment." Danny frowned but nodded. As he moved toward the crowd, Marcus felt a weight settle heavily on his heart. He wanted to trust, Danny wanted to believe he could be the brother he had missed, but deeper fears niggled at him. "Everyone," Danny called out, his voice unsteady but gaining strength. "Thank you for coming tonight. We're here because we want change, and we want to shed light on the dark things happening in our community." As he spoke, Marcus saw the room shift. Conversations silenced. Eyes turned eager, receptive. Then came the first unexpected voice. "What dark things?" A woman from the back called out skeptically. Murmurs traveled like a ripple through the crowd. Skepticism turned to curiosity. Danny took a breath, courage building within him. The funds meant for our neighborhood are disappearing. People are suffering, and it's happening because of those in power, like Mr. Thompson. The last name hung in the air, echoing off the walls, fueling a fire ignited by shared frustration. Gasps erupted, followed by whispers that twisted into louder voices. The momentum shifted again, pulling Marcus's heart into a hopeful rhythm. He sensed a collective energy swell, each spectator joining the fight. "I knew I could count on you, brother," Marcus murmured, pride swelling in his chest. He could see trust blooming in Danny's eyes as he continued to speak. Suddenly the doors swung open, slicing through the atmosphere, revealing Mr. Thompson himself, flanked by a couple of his corporate cronies. The air thickened, and the vibrant colors of hope dimmed like a flickering light. Danny's speech faltered as disbelief washed over the crowd. Tension crackled like static, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "What's this?" Thompson barked, stepping into the room with a commanding presence. It was a challenge thrown into the air, and the community held its breath. Suddenly, everything was on the line. Would they stand together, hearts unified against the corruption that had strangled their lives, or would fear win tonight? Marcus stepped forward, every word trembling in his throat. "It's time for the truth to come out, Mr. Thompson. No more silence." The room shifted, all eyes on him now. Would he be the catalyst for this fight? The stakes had never been higher. And in that charged moment, he realized maybe what lay ahead would not only reveal the truth about Mr. Thompson, but also about himself. What kind of brother, what kind of man did he want to be? The question echoed loudly as the confrontation began, each response from their neighbors a stepping stone toward an uncertain but hopeful future. What would the truth unearth? The atmosphere hung heavy with anticipation as Mr. Thompson stared down Marcus, a smirk etched on his face. Eyes darted, breaths held tight. There was no turning back now. This was a moment weighed down by all they had endured. Marcus felt a surge of strength, the collective resolve of his community firing him up. "Everyone knows what's happening here, Thompson," he said, voice steadier than he felt. "You can't silence us any longer." Danny stood behind him, his hand on Marcus's shoulder, drawing courage from his brother's boldness. A few murmured words of encouragement swept through the crowd, the warmth of solidarity spreading like wildfire. Thompson's eyes darkened. "You think you can sway these people? Look around. They don't want chaos. They want their lives back." The words dripped with condescension. The crowd shifted, uncertainty creeping in like a shadow. "Look at my brother's art." Marcus shot back, pointing. "It tells the truth about our lives. It invites us to see each other again. This isn't chaos. It's a cry for help." The sensibilities of their childhood echoed in his mind the times he and Danny made art in the backyard, becoming each other's escape from the darkness. A thin, elderly woman stepped forward, voice shaking but fierce. "My son lost his job because of you, Thompson," she yelled, her face turning red with emotion. "We need our community back." The crowd erupted. More voices joined hers, standing together against the intimidation. Hope lit the room as Danny's mural seemed to throb with life, a beacon for all the pain that had silenced them for too long. Thompson took a step back, eyes narrowing. "You think banding together will save you? I'm untouchable." But in his words was a flicker of fear. The facade of strength wavered as he faced the tide of energy pushing back against him. "Untouchable?" Marcus challenged, feeling the heat of the crowd's gaze. "You're only as strong as the trust others give you. You've broken that trust. Will you keep using our fear to keep us quiet, or will you answer for your actions?" The silence that followed was intense. Everyone held their breath, waiting for Thompson's response. They were ready now. This was a fight not just against him, but for justice, for brotherhood, for their community. As Thompson opened his mouth, words began to spill forth, but it was too late. A chant rose up, echoing through the space. No more silence. No more lies. It boomed like a heartbeat in the room, gathering strength. Marcus clenched his fists at his sides, adrenaline rushing through him like a storm. This wasn't just about Danny's art. It was about reclaiming their lives, each stroke of paint laying bare the struggle they faced every day. Suddenly, Danny stepped in front of Marcus, his eyes shining with determination. "You've lost control of us, Thompson. We're taking it back," he said, and the crowd roared in agreement. As Thompson's face reddened with anger, someone shouted, "We deserve better," and others joined in. It was a collective roar, drowning out any power he thought he had. With the chaos growing, the reality of what they were doing sank in for Marcus. The fight was far from over, and they had no idea what would come after tonight. Yet they stood together, strong and ready to push against the weight of the world. But just as hope began to blossom, a crash echoed from the back, followed by a shout. "Police!" Everyone stepped back. The chant faltered as chaos threatened to spill over again. What was coming next? Would their stand against injustice lead to more trouble, or a chance to finally reclaim what was lost? The hope they'd fought for shimmered on the edge of uncertainty, and as the officers moved forward, Marcus and Danny exchanged a glance filled with understanding. They were in this together, and whatever came next, they wouldn't back down. What would the police's arrival mean for the fight they had just ignited? The police moved forward, their uniforms stark against the vibrant backdrop of Danny's mural. The chanting crowd hesitated, falling into an uneasy silence, like the calm just before a storm. Marcus felt his heart race, a wild rhythm pounding his chest as he scanned the faces around him. Fear flickered in some eyes, but that spark of hope still burned brighter in others. "Keep chanting," Marcus urged. "Don't let them silence us." His voice cut through the tense atmosphere, igniting a renewed fire in the crowd. "We have a right to be heard." Danny moved closer to his brother, each step full of determination. "This is about us, about our future. They can't intimidate us anymore." The lead officer, a tall man with a stern expression, barked orders. "Step back. This is an unlawful gathering." His words hung heavy in the air, but instead of retreating, the community pressed forward, emboldened by the brothers' defiance. "Unlawful?" An older man shouted. "It's unlawful to ignore the suffering of your community. We want to back down." The words echoed around the group, and the chant rose again, stronger than before. No more silence. No more lies. Marcus could feel the power surging within him, lifting him above the fear. They were fighting for more than just their voices. They were fighting for their right to exist in a world that too often dismissed them. As the police moved closer, he spotted another officer pulling out a set of handcuffs. His stomach knotted. "Dare to arrest us?" Marcus shouted, fury and defiance woven together in his voice. "We're standing up for justice. You can't stop this movement." Just then, the older woman who had spoken up earlier stepped forward again. "We're not afraid. We're tired of hiding. We are what this town needs, and we will be heard. This time, she was met with roars of affirmation. The lead officer seemed caught off guard. He hesitated, glancing back at his colleagues. For a brief moment, uncertainty crossed his face. Marcus could see a flicker of doubt behind the badge. It was a crack in the armor, and he knew they had to exploit it. "Look at us," Marcus yelled, his voice trembling from the intensity. "Look at our community. We're not just random faces. We matter. We have dreams, families, aspirations. You want us to disappear, but we're rising up." A murmur surged through the crowd, rippling like water as they collectively took a step toward the officers, even as Marcus felt the chill of fear creep back. Breaths mingled with anticipation, uncertainty twisting like a vine around each moment. The lead officer finally spoke again, his voice more uncertain this time. "This can't escalate. We can work something out pushing through the fear," Danny stepped up. "We want to be heard, not ignored. We need a platform where we can voice the issues we face, and we need it now." With desperation on the line, Marcus threw out the question, "What will it take for you to listen?" The crowd turned silent, each heart beating fiercely in expectation. They needed answers, not confrontations. They needed change more than anything else. And then, as the officer appeared to deliver it, another crash echoed through the hall, this time from behind the police. Gasps rippled through the crowd. What now? This was the moment they had built up to. Would all that they fought for be eclipsed by more chaos? Or would this crack in the situation lead to something greater? Marcus turned to Danny, their eyes locking in unspoken resolve. If this was about to escalate, they needed to brave whatever challenge lay ahead. The flickering spirit within them charged, ready to face whatever storm was brewing on the horizon. Could this be the moment they finally turned the tide, or were they about to face their toughest test yet? The crowd held its breath. Silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the distant sounds of chaos. That crash had shattered their fragile moment of negotiation, and a tension thickened the air. Marcus looked back to the police line, where officers were now glancing nervously at one another. The lead officer clenched his jaw, eyes darting around as if searching for a lifeline. "Stay calm." A voice rang out from a group on the right. It was a woman, fear mingled with fierce determination. "We've come too far to turn back now." Spurred by her words, a wave of emotion surged through the crowd. Murmurs transformed into whispers of solidarity, reinforcing their collective mission. The realization hit Marcus that this wasn't just about his voice or even Danny's. It was about everyone, friends, neighbors, families all united in their quest for justice. "We're not alone in this," he thought, and then glanced at Danny, who wore an expression mingled with resolve and fear. "Let us stand together," Danny shouted, stepping up onto a low wall that framed the mural. He raised his arms, drawing the crowd's eyes to him. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for a future where our children don't have to fear the police, where our struggles are not in vain." As the crowd erupted into the chant again, the officer shifted uncomfortably, clearly outnumbered. Each shout echoed a heartbeat, turning their fear into collective strength. No more silence. No more lies. The rhythm built into a powerful crescendo. Hope pulsed, vibrant and alive. But then, before they could ride that wave of emotion too far, another sound broke through the unmistakable rumble of engines. It was a fleet of police vans, their painted shields glimmering under the fading sun. Panic rippled through the crowd, faces turning pale. Marcus's heart sank as he realized reinforcements were rolling in, ready to quash the resistance. "Stay strong," he yelled above the rising din. "They can only silence us if we let them." Suddenly, a younger voice, a girl who couldn't have been more than 16, stepped forward, fists clenched at her sides. "What if we all sit down?" she proposed, eyes fiery with conviction. "If we sit down, they can't drag us away. They'll have to listen." At first, disbelief washed over the crowd, but then heads began to nod in recognition. Sitting down meant they couldn't be ignored. It meant taking a stand, a peaceful act, but one rooted in undeniable strength. Without waiting for permission, Marcus dropped to the ground, urging Danny and others down with him. As they settled onto the pavement, a ripple of confusion transformed into action. One by one, the crowd began to kneel, until the once vibrant mural became a patchwork of bodies unified in resistance. The lead officer's expression shifted, confusion mingling with hesitation. He took a step back, perhaps realizing that force would not end this. The sound of more sirens wailed in the distance, but in that moment, it felt like they had seized a fragment of control. Even if momentarily, the chant morphed into a chant of "We are unbreakable." Laughter broke through tension, laughter of triumph, hope, and unity. They were facing the storm together, fortified by a bond that transcended fear and doubt. But beneath the surface of this newfound strength, Marcus felt a stirring fear. What would happen when the night descended? Would the police confront them with force? Would this moment, just like so many others, slip from their grasp? "Danny," he whispered, looking into his brother's eyes. "What if this doesn't end well?" Just then, in the distance, he noticed shadows approaching. Those weren't police shadows. Marcus squinted hard. They were too familiar, painted in the colors of their community. Friends, family, more supporters carried signs of their own, joining a movement that was growing larger than anyone had expected. Could this moment fuel an even bigger movement, or were they igniting a fire that could spiral out of control? The shadows grew closer, revealing familiar faces filled with determination. Marcus's heart swelled. Friends from a neighborhood, the ones who had stood by him through thick and thin. They held signs that proclaimed their support, words scrawled in bright, defiant colors. Each one was a reminder that their fight was not just about standing against injustice, but about the community's spirit that refused to be extinguished. Danny's eyes lit up. "Look, they're coming," he shouted, a mix of joy and disbelief. "They believe in us." One by one, more supporters joined the seated crowd, some sitting down beside them, while others raised their voices in solidarity. The air buzzed with a renewed spirit. "Together, we are stronger," a woman shouted from the front, her voice ringing through the crowd, and it spread like wildfire. It ignited a spark, setting the rhythm of the chant ablaze once more. "We'll be heard," they proclaimed, echoing through the streets like a battle cry against the winds of oppression. The police vans rolled in closer, sending icy chills through Marcus. He could see officers gearing up for confrontation, shields in hand, and all he could think was that they needed to stay calm. But deep down, doubt crept in. What if their peaceful sit-in wasn't enough to stave off confrontation? What if the community's joint effort only provoked the very violence they were trying to quash? "Keep going, everyone, keep chanting," Danny encouraged, his voice merging with the energy of the crowd. "We are unbreakable." Each shout became a pulse, a heartbeat in the growing solidarity surrounding them. The weight of shared experiences brought clarity, and it struck Marcus. Tonight could change everything in the backdrop. The sky deepened into a rich indigo, the edges of the horizon fading away. The light dimmed, but something more than just their resolve shone through. Faces illuminated by the street lamps reflected hope, belonging, and unity. Each person present breathed life into the movement, proving that anger could be woven into compassion and purpose. Just then, Marcus noticed a pair of eyes locked onto him from the throng of new supporters. It was his old friend, Elena. She had always been a vocal advocate for justice, her passion fierce and unwavering. Her presence meant the world. As she broke through the crowd, a smile spread across her face. "Marcus, you did this," she declared, her voice filled with pride. "You brought us all here. Together, we can fight for what's right." For a moment, he felt choking emotions swell within him. The community was bigger than he had ever envisioned, more vibrant and filled with spirit. "This is just the beginning," he managed, his voice breaking slightly but fueled by raw determination. "We'll stand until justice is served." Elena nodded, her eyes brimming with fire. "Then let us make sure they hear us tonight." She grabbed Marcus's hand, squeezing tightly, a silent vow exchanged between friends, bound by the urgency of the moment. But the tension escalated again. The lead officer stepped forward, holding a bullhorn, his features sullen but resolute. "You need to disperse." His voice boomed. "This is your final warning." With a heart-racing urgency, Marcus felt the ground shift beneath them. The officers were preparing, and now they needed to decide how to respond, and a mix of fear and fierce determination coursed through everyone present. Would they stand their ground and risk confrontation, or would they find a way to make their voices heard without falling into chaos? Whatever choice they made, the reality of the moment settled in. They were on the precipice of something monumental. "Focus," Danny shouted. "This is our fight. We cannot falter now." As they faced the police line, the question hung in the air. Were they ready to face whatever came next? That question lingered, heavy and charged, amidst the gathering darkness. The air crackled with tension as the crowd held its collective breath. Marcus felt the cold sweat trickle down his back, his heart pounding in his chest. He met Elena's gaze, searching for strength. "We can do this," she whispered, her eyes steady despite the storm gathering around them. "Stay united," Marcus called out, his voice rising above the murmurs. It was his turn to galvanize the crowd. They had come too far, fought too hard to back down now. "Our voices are powerful. We're not going anywhere." The chant surged again, louder this time, a tidal wave of defiance echoing down the empty streets. He felt the energy vibrate through the ground and press against his skin, a solid connection to everyone around him. Friends, neighbors, a community fighting for a shared purpose. They were more than just individuals. They were interwoven like threads of a vibrant tapestry. The lead officer raised his bullhorn again, attempting to pierce through their defiance. "You are committing a misdemeanor. Disperse or face arrest." His words were sharp, but they only fueled the fire igniting in Marcus's chest. These threats were meant to intimidate, to divide. But united they stood a wall of resolve. "We have the right to be here," a strong voice from the crowd interjected. It was Jess, the high school teacher who had always inspired her students to think for themselves. "Today, our learning continues outside the classroom." "Right on," they echoed back, camaraderie mixing with conviction. Under the glare of the streetlights, faces lit with determination reflected in the dim glow, animated and fierce. Hope seemed palpable, like an unyielding light breaking through the darkness. "Remember what we fight for," Danny shouted, his voice raw with emotion. "Not just for ourselves, but for our kids, our future. They need to know we stood up." Marcus looked around, recognizing the faces of those who had poured their hearts into this fight. There was Mrs. Gibson, holding a handmade sign that read "We deserve better," and Jay, the local artist, whose mural had become a symbol of their struggle. Each person represented a story, a life touched by the injustices they were rallying against. As the police officers arranged themselves, Marcus realized the true weight of their gathering. It was about more than the event of the night. It was about their future. This could be a turning point, a moment that rippled through history. But with that realization came an unsettling fear. What if they became targets? What if peace turned to chaos? "Stay together," he urged again, squeezing Elena's hand tighter. The bond between them strengthened amidst uncertainty. "Do not give in to fear. We're in this together." Then silence fell, the kind filled with signs of anticipation. It was almost deafening. The police adjusted their shields, and a heavy moment of unspoken tension lingered as the world outside their bubble faded away. Suddenly, without warning, a loud sound erupted from the far side of the street, a blast that caught everyone off guard. Gasps filled the air as a flash of light burst through the darkness. Marcus's heart sunk as a reality set in. This was the moment they feared. A point of no return. A wave of confusion washed over the crowd as the reality of their situation collided with panic. He could feel chaos creeping in. "Stay calm. Protect one another," he shouted, searching for certainty in the chaos surrounding them. With the situation spiraling, the question tautened like a string pulled too tight. Would they rise together or be torn apart? As the first tear gas canister rolled into their midst, Marcus knew they had to act fast. "Move back," he yelled, the urgency in his voice rising. "We need to regroup." The stakes had never felt higher, yet the pulse of the crowd remained steady. They were a force, and with adrenaline fueling their resolve, they had to find a way through the storm. Marcus's gaze shifted to the distant horizon, where dawn would soon break. Would they find the light before the night tried to consume them whole? The vision of their fight came into focus, but at what cost? The acrid scent of tear gas began to fill the air, cutting through the adrenaline like a blade. Panic surged in Marcus's chest, tightening its grip. He glanced at Elena, her eyes wide with fear, but her stance unwavering. "This way," she shouted, pointing toward a nearby alley. The crowd followed her lead, moving as one while the loud thud of boots echoed like war drums. "Don't let go of each other," Marcus urged, gripping Elena's hand tighter. The voices around them swelled, a mix of cries and determination blending into a primal roar. Together, they pushed through, finding solace in their shared mission. They ducked into the narrow alley, breathing hard. Marcus could barely hear his own thoughts over the chaos outside. The fray of emotions, fear, anger, hope clashed within him. He checked that everyone was accounted for. Heads bobbed in the dim light, faces painted with resolve and uncertainty. "Is everyone okay?" he asked. Heads nodded, and he could see Mrs. Gibson close to tears, but standing strong. Jay held his camera, ready to document the moment. "We need to stay together and find a safe spot," he reminded them, adrenaline surging again. Elena squeezed his hand again, grounding him. "What if they don't stop?" she whispered. Fear shimmered in her eyes. The question hung in the air, heavy and haunting. "We can't think that way," Marcus replied, his voice steady, bolstered by her unwavering support. "This isn't just for us anymore. It's for all the others who can't be here." He sensed the truth in his words, hoping to rally his own wavering spirit. Just then, the fading light of a street lamp caught on a figure at the alley's mouth. It was Jess, waving her arms frantically. "They're trying to push us back. We need to regroup with the others," she shouted. "Go," Marcus urged, and they rushed out into the street, fear replaced by a potent energy. They rejoined the main throng, breathing the same air of collective commitment. The cheers of the crowd seemed to carry them forward, their voices a shield against despair. With renewed vigor, Marcus shouted, "Together, show them who we are," and they chanted in unison, voices swelling like waves crashing against the rocks. What started as mere words transformed into a rallying cry, igniting a fierce determination. But amidst the noise, a sudden uprising of chaos broke through the line. A barrier failed, and the police surged forward, batons swinging. In that instant, Marcus saw a small child at the edge of the crowd, terrified and lost. Without thinking, he broke away. "Stay here," he shouted to Elena. "Marcus, no," she yelled, reaching out, but he was already moving, heart racing for the child. He glanced back at the mob, a sea of humanity that could either save or swallow him whole. With the child grasping his wrist, Marcus turned back, shouting to those behind him, "Help us! We need to help her get back to her parents." The urgency of his plea cut through the chaos, and suddenly he was not alone. Others jumped in beside him, forming a protective circle around the frightened child. The moment felt electric, a vivid reminder of what was at stake. With each step they took, they fought not just against the police, but against the fear that threatened to pull them apart. Then a voice rang out, clear among the chaos. "United we stand." The words reverberated through the crowd, igniting hope. They took a collective breath, folding strength into their bonds. As they navigated through the chaos, they could see the fringes of their gathering beginning to morph a symbol forged in solidarity. But as the cries continued and the police advanced, Marcus knew they were far from safe. Were they willing to risk to hold the line? Behind every shout echoed the looming question, both for himself and the community. Would this painful struggle ignite a flame of change or burn them all? With that thought swirling, More explosions rang out in the distance, both a warning and a promise. The battle was far from over. The surge of the crowd swelled around Marcus like a powerful tide, pulling him forward, yet his focus remained on the frightened little girl by his side. He could feel the urgency of the moment wrapping around him, echoing within his chest. "Just hold on tight," he said, trying to sound calm, even as the chaos erupted all around them. Concrete and asphalt pressed beneath their feet while shouts rang in the air. Every moment felt heavy, filled with the weight of fear and purpose. He spotted a glimpse of familiar faces in the mass, ahead those of friends, allies, and strangers who share their fight. He urged them forward. "We're right here. We're getting you to safety." At first, the little girl trembled, her eyes darting around. He could see her trembling lip, her tears mixing with the dust and distress of the moment. "Where's my mom?" she asked, a raw innocence cutting through the whirlwind. In just a moment, Marcus assured her, forcing back a wave of panic inside. He pressed through the throng, every heartbeat drumming a rhythm of resolve. Around them, voices fused into one, united in their urgency. Elena had arrived at his side, her breathing heavy, but her spirit fierce. "We'll find her." She looked down at the girl, her hand steadying Marcus's grip on the child. "What is your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered, glancing up nervously. "We won't let anything happen to you." "Lily," Elena said, and a flicker of hope sparked in the girl's eyes. It was small but potent, a light amidst the gathering storm. They pressed onward together. The sound of shouting and confusion continued to churn, but in that moment, they were warriors on a quest, not just for survival, but for justice, for community, for each other. "We are stronger together," Marcus shouted again, rallying their group, feeling the rallying cry surge through them once more. Together came the echoes, voices weaving a fabric of strength around them. Each shout pushed back against the anguish of fear, each footfall reverberating with the promise of resilience. But the police formed a line ahead, batons raised, shields shimmering in the flickering light from the street lamps. The crowd slowed, an uneasy wave crashing against resistance. Marcus's heart raced wildly as the realization hit. The fight wasn't just against oppression, it was a battle to shield those who couldn't shield themselves. In that split second, a flash of desperation crossed through the barrier. A flashbang detonated in the street, brightening the darkness and exploding their cool resolve into a tempest of panic. People scattered, instinctively preparing to flee. "Stay close," Marcus bellowed, trying to maintain control, but that cry turned into a cacophony of confusion. He turned to Lily, fear evident in her wide eyes, and instinct kicked into overdrive. He clutched her hand tighter, looking to Elena. "We can't stand still. They'll push us back. What'll we do?" Her voice shook, blending fear with determination. "Over there, to the side. We'll find a way around." He pointed toward a break in the chaos, a narrow path that offered a chance to slip through the flurry. They needed to get her to safety, but the advancing line of officers loomed, growing ever more threatening. As the tension escalated, the choice looming ahead crystallized in Marcus's mind. It wasn't just a moment of chaos. It was a breaking point. They could either keep fighting for Lily's safety or risk losing everything amidst the chaos. "Go," he shouted, pushing through with urgency and purpose, hoping Elena and the others would follow. The cries were all around them, but beneath it all, one question haunted him. How far would they have to go to stand their ground? With the chaos enveloping them, he realized this was just the beginning of their fight. But the bond they had forged today would either lead them to safety or into the very heart of the storm. Would it be enough to change what lay ahead? The noise outside began to settle, a momentary lull replaced by heavy breathing and hushed voices within the circle formed around Marcus and the lost little girl, Lily. The brittle tension in the crowd hung in the air like a distant storm, but in that moment of silence, every heartbeat echoed with hope and resolve. "Keep together. We'll protect you, Lily," Marcus repeated as he clutched her little hand tighter. Instinctively, everyone drew closer, creating a protective barrier against the chaos threatening to engulf them. He looked into Lily's wide, frightened eyes and murmured, "You're safe with us." Elena stepped forward, offering a calming smile to the girl. "We're fighting for you and all kids like you. You're not alone." Marcus could feel her strength rising like warm sunlight breaking through clouds. It transferred from Elena to him and then to the rest of the crowd, stitching them together in their desperation and dreams. As the police began to advance again, a loud voice boomed, bouncing off the walls of the alley. "If you just disperse, we'll handle this quietly." But as Marcus looked around, it was clear that the crowd was anything but ready to scatter. "Stay put," Marcus shouted, his voice rising above the murmur of resistance, answering the officer's command with a powerful declaration of unity. "This is our community. We have a right to fight for it." He felt the surge of camaraderie wash over him, much like waves crashing against formidable rocks, unyielding and fierce. The faint sound of support echoed behind him. "Yes, together." One voice yelled, then another, until it became a chorus, blurring together in a rising tide of determination. They chanted that chant once more. No more silence. No more lies. He turned back to the line of police officers, whose expressions shifted, wavering slightly at the grassroots movement surrounding them. In that moment of vulnerability, Marcus's voice cut through the distractions. "You think we'll go home quietly? No. We stand here for a reason, and we deserve to be heard." Lily squeezed his hand as if understanding the gravity of the moment. It was a moment where innocence met the fire of justice, and the collective resolve wrapped around them like an embrace. And then something unexpected happened. A soft voice floated through the throng. It was Mrs. Gibson, her face illuminated by the glint of streetlights. "I want to say something," she declared, moving towards the front of the crowd with shaking hands and determined resolve. In that electric moment, all eyes turned to her. With voice trembling, she spoke, "I've lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years. I've watched my neighbors suffer while others profit off our backs. You can't keep us down anymore." Her words pierced through the uncertainty like an arrow, powerful and true. Danny stepped beside her, pride swelling within him. "We can't keep living in fear. This is our home, our community. We deserve to thrive, not just survive." Every word ignited fresh energy. The chant grew stronger, reverberating in sync with their hearts no longer tethered by fear, but instead fueled by passion and the need for change. "No more silence. No more lies." Suddenly, from behind them emerged another wave of allies, friends, parents, even people from neighboring communities, their voices threading through the hum of resolve. It felt like a tidal wave of courage crashing against the barriers of oppression. The lead officer shifted uneasily, glancing back nervously toward the police line. For a moment, uncertainty glimmered in his eyes as the ranks of blue seemed to waver at the force of hundreds of voices shouting in unison. "Stand back," he shouted, the order slashing the air, but the surge of emotion was unstoppable. "That's enough." But Marcus saw something shift in the crowd. It began to amplify the chant even louder. People were emboldened, found solace in unity. It was more than just a protest. It was a statement. As hearts merged in their collective cry for justice, Marcus turned back to Lily, who gazed up at him wide-eyed, lit by the embers of hope. "We're going to make a difference, I promise." "Okay," she called, a flicker of excitement replacing her fear. And in those vital moments, standing shoulder to shoulder, eyes locked in firm resolution, Marcus realized that the fight they were waging wasn't just for themselves. It was for those who felt unseen, those who had been silenced for too long. As the police huddled together, unsure, a surge of courage unified the voices in that street, a mosaic of memories, dreams, struggles, but above all, a community. The power they had tapped into illuminated their spirits and forged friendships, even rekindled brotherhoods, forming an unbreakable chain of defiance. "Together we change this," Marcus shouted again, sending vibrations of strength through the assembled crowd. His heart pulsed with fierce pride. No longer was he just a mechanic trying to keep his family afloat. He was now part of something bigger, a movement that reached beyond the here and now. From the corners of the crowd, chants transformed into a melody, not one of chaos, but of unity. They began to sway, feet shuffling as voices intertwined, echoing against the concrete, a symphony of hope rising from the ashes of despair. It felt electric. Then, breaking through the noise, a woman in the back cried out, "Our children as futures are worth fighting for." The statement hung pregnant in the air, shifting emotions from fear to resolve, a galvanizing declaration that wrapped around them all. With one final eruption, arms lifted high, they found their strength. Together, rang through the gathering like a gospel, each voice reaching skyward. Marcus gazed at Danny, seeing the wild spark of inspiration reflected back. His brother had become a sibling filled with promise again, an artist wielding hope like a brush on canvas. The police stepped back further, their power dwindling against the overwhelming will of the people. And when the first rays of dawn broke the horizon, illuminating the sea of faces, it became clear. Together, they had turned a painful struggle into a beacon of hope. In that awakening moment, a new chapter would unfold, one built upon their resilience and unity. The fight would continue, but it wouldn't end here. From that night on, they knew their voices mattered. As they embraced that dawn, a wave washed over them, a promise of change, a promise of love, a promise of togetherness. With hearts full, they turned, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, prepared to rise again, together. Change was coming, and they were the ones who would usher it in. Remember, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to stay connected with the journey ahead. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm, and comment your thoughts on this inspiring conclusion. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the hope and the message far and wide.